Awesome, man. Here we go. What's going on, Elite Brokers? Matty Ice here, and I got an awesome training for you, man. I'm really excited to do this. I've been trying to bring this into Elite Broker for a little while, and today we're going to be talking about selling trade lines and why adding trade lines to your lending business can really help you take your business to the next level. It's going to help you make more money up front. So it adds an additional revenue stream to your lending business, but it's also going to help you close more deals a lot faster too, that you otherwise may have lost due to credit. So I've had a lot of brokers over the years, tell me that the biggest issue they have a lot of the times is that, people that request funding, they're interested in having good conversations, but they don't have the credit to get the funding that they need. Trade lines can really help solve that issue, in addition to long-term credit repair as well. But if you're really trying to boost your client's credit so that you can get the funding done, man, trade lines is definitely the way to go. And Mr. Will King is definitely the man for trade lines here. He's actually an Elite Broker member. So it's just kind of the perfect partnership, and my goal with Elite Broker is to give you guys all the tools and resources you need to absolutely crush it in this business. So Elite Broker, we've got the marketing down. That's working really good. But now we're bringing in these different lender partnerships and just different product partnerships. And in this case, we're talking about trade lines. So Will, really appreciate your time and really appreciate you being here. How are we doing today?
Man, I'm doing amazing, Matt. And I want to say thank you, man. You do so much. My hat's off to you, man. Thank you for the invite, the opportunity to share. Definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I really appreciate that. First off, let's start with a little bit of background on you. How long you've been in the business? What's the name of your business? Introduce yourself and kind of what's your experience in this business so far?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Will King is my name. Our company is Elite Vision Funding. A lot of people know us on that, by that name throughout the social medias. We've been in the space now about 7 or 8 years, and it really started from actually a little bit over 8 years, excuse me. We have a real estate investing company, and I can remember back in early 2014, we started. My wife would find properties, and I would go in and meet with the seller and, negotiate the contract, evaluate the repairs. And then I'll try to get some funding. And man, I got a lot of declines. I mean, a lot of declines. It was very frustrating. And, having to come home, tell my wife, hey, we didn't get the funding. So, we just decided, hey, we either have to figure out what these banks are looking for, or we're going to have to find something else to do. So we decided to dig in, so I started building relationships with some commercial lenders local here in Texas, joined some of the groups and just started getting around the language. Just started trying to learn what was it they were looking for. And so as we started working and building our own credit, we had some friends that had businesses. And then we started learning about funding. So we told them, we said, hey, if you guys ever need funding, we'll get you, we'll help you and we'll do it for free. And we did it for free. We were able to get some of them funding. And so we said, hey, I think we got something. So I can remember about mid 2015, 16, when my credit was just a little over 700. But my credit profile wasn't that strong. And so that's when I started learning about trade lines. So I had purchased 3 trade lines from a young lady here that she does credit repair, does some other things. And so when I purchased those, I immediately saw my credit just like catapults. I was like, wow, and so I went and started applying for credit, man, and started getting credit. I was like, this is amazing. So I started learning more about trade lines. It was very interesting. And so now we find that to be a very important part of our business, because a lot of people that come to us for funding, people get trade lines for normally one of 2 reasons. Either they have very high utilization on their revolving credit lines, credit cards, or they don't have a strong credit profile. So they may have what we call young age. So they're trying to get the age of their credit up, or they're trying to get the utilization on their credit down. That's normally one of 2 reasons why people come. And so, at that time I did it, it was because I was rebuilding. And so I needed some age and I needed some credit limits. And it really, man, did a tremendous work for me. And it was like a bridge. I tell people it's a bridge. So they don't stay on forever. Typically about 90 days. I like to tell people 3 billing cycles. You have some trade lines that will stay on for 4, but for the most part, it's about 3 billing cycles. So it's kind of that window that gives you an opportunity to go and do what you need to do. Okay. But
Right.
we found it to be really great. So we've been in that space, like I said, about 8 years now.
That's really interesting, man. How those work. I want to dive into that a little bit, but there was
Mhm.
something you said. Wait, in your experience, even if people have the higher credit score, they still might get declined, is what you're saying, based on other factors like their utilization and age, right? So even if,
Exactly.
like you said, they have a 700 credit score, which is pretty decent, you would still see them get declined,
Yeah. We
right?
actually had a guy just recently came to us and he was coming for funding. In fact, he came from, I did a YouTube, I was invited to do a YouTube interview a couple of weeks ago, a young lady that's in the real estate investment space. And so we got a number of leads that came in through that. And so the guy came in and he says, hey, I'm trying to figure out why we got declined for our mortgage. So I said, hey, send me over your credit report. He sent it over. His credit scores, now this is interesting. His credit scores, I think his lowest was like 765 and his
Wow.
highest was in the mid 780. Here was what the thing was. He had 3 accounts on his credit report. 2 of those accounts was his primary account, which means that account was the only account that he really had that was a primary account, and it was a new account. It was open the beginning of this year. It was a $500 secured credit card. The other 2 accounts were Tradelines, authorized user accounts. So I immediately looked at his reports, and I tell you, I can tell you why you got declined. You have a very thin credit profile, and lenders understand when they look at a profile like this. And so we kind of told him some things that he could do to kind of get that up and going. But
Mhm.
absolutely, man, I've seen it several times where, people come to us and they're in the 700s, but when we look at their credit, it's like, nah, your credit profile is thin. And that's one of the things that people don't understand. Banks don't really care about your credit score. They care about your credit profile. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. They don't care
And
about your
is
credit.
that's the problem that Tradelines would solve. So even though he had a 765 upwards of 780, a trade line or maybe multiple, right? Because in some
Mhm.
cases, if you have a profile that is just almost non-existent, it might benefit you to do a couple of trade lines. Am I correct?
It could. Now, in his case, though, I recommended that he needs to get more primary because the other thing that you have to be careful with is over flooding your credit report with trade lines.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because again, trade lines, they have a specific purpose, but you also have to show that you, the primary, also has the ability to manage credit. So that's where
Right.
having primary trade lines come in. Okay.
Okay.
So in his case, that's what we recommended. And we had a number of things that he could do that would really strengthen his credit profile within 30 days or less, actually.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, from what I understand about trade lines, they work really quick. So, can you just kind of give us a basic overview of what is it about a trade line exactly that boosts the credit, and
Mhm.
also what is the typical time frame that you see it, and also maybe like what is the average increase in the credit that you see?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, you have to know what the reporting date is on that trade line. Okay. Meaning, when does it report to the credit reporting agencies? So always tell clients, just make sure around that date, maybe a day or 2 after. Sometimes it may take a day or 2 for them to actually put it on your report. But
Hmm.
around that reporting date, look on your credit and see if it has reported. Okay. And so one of the things that it will do for a credit profile is, like I mentioned earlier, it will help to bring down your overall utilization. So one of the things people have to understand when it comes to trade lines is a trade line is not going to go in and bring down your balances on your existing cards.
Right.
Understand that. You still are responsible for those. You still have to make sure that you work to get those paid down. So what trade lines would do is it would help to bring down your overall utilization. So when
Right.
banks look at your credit, they're going to look at individual lines, but they're going to look at your overall revolving utilization. Okay. And so that's what trade lines will help with. It'll help with that overall utilization to bring it down, but it also will help, like I said, with age. It will give you a credit report more age as well. So that's one of the things we also find is that people will have, the overall age of their credit file may be 2 years or under. In the eyes of a bank, that's still a fairly new credit profile. Okay.
Right.
So we tell people you want to get above that 5 year and more mark. Now, obviously, it's like wine. The older the wine is, the finer it is, the nicer it is, the better it tastes. So
Hmm.
kind of the same thing with credit. That
Okay.
age is really, really important. So those are some of the things that trade lines would do for your credit profile.
So is the trade line essentially you're adding the client as an authorized user on an aged account of
Exactly.
some, like a credit card or
Exactly.
whatever, right?
Exactly. So what I tell people is that you're not going to get the physical credit card. You don't need the
Right.
physical credit card. You need the
Right.
history. Okay.
Right.
So in essence, all you're doing is buying the history of a good account that has a good payment history. It's been, let's say, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever the age is on it. And we definitely want to make sure that that utilization stays in the single digits, meaning less than 8, 9%. Okay.
Right.
So that's what you're actually putting on your credit profile. So that strengthens your credit profile, but you do not get and you do not need the physical card in order for
Right.
trade lines to work.
Yeah, because you just want the benefit of having that card. So are the cards? What's the age range usually for these types of trade lines? And I would imagine that affects the cost of the trade line as well, like how old they are.
Exactly. So obviously, the older they are, the more they're going to cost. Okay.
Right.
The age, it can range. I've seen some from 1 year up to 20 years. I mean, it can really
Mhm.
range, you know.
Yeah.
But the thing I will also say is it's very important to understand how to strategically add these to your client's credit profile. Because what you don't want is a client that, let's just say their profile has 15, 20 years of age, right? And then you go and you add one or two credit trade lines, and those trade lines then bring the age down. You don't want to do
Right.
that. So that's why
Right.
you have to strategically know how to place those on the person's credit profile, as well as you don't want to drop their overall utilization, I mean, their overall credit limits. So you have
Right.
to know how to read the credit report and then know what trade lines best fit this client's credit profile.
Yeah. So you can't you don't want to just be popping off trade lines to everybody. It's not going to be a good fit for some people. It sounds to me like a good majority of people, like in this business when we do marketing, the business owners they don't have the credit profile. Would
Mhm.
you say that more times than not, it is a good fit for these business owners?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
especially in these days and time, because, with the way the economy is, I want to say post COVID, and, businesses are still trying to get them wheels turning again. So what's happening is a lot of people are using their personal credit to keep their business going. And
Right.
so they're running very high limits on their credit. And
Right.
so definitely trade lines will be a really good fit. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Now, you mentioned that it'll typically stay on for 3 billing cycles. So essentially, what the business owner is paying for is this like 3 month boost to their
Mhm.
credit profile, which inevitably brings up their score potentially as well. Um, what happens after the 3 months? It just falls off. Did people typically see their credit score come back down? But it's okay because they were able to get what they needed to get anyways.
Right. And so normally what happens is it'll just show up as a terminated account. So it'll still be on there, but it'll show up as a terminated account. Okay.
Okay.
Now, in terms of the dip in the score, well, again, remember it's a bridge. It's just a bridge, it's an opportunity. So in that 3 month window, you should be doing the things that you need to do to get your
Right.
primary accounts on your credit. Okay. And
Okay.
so you may have a slight dip in your score, but it should not be much if you've done the things that you should be doing.
So the trade line isn't just for getting funding. So the
Mm,
trade line would also get you to a point where you can get your own better accounts, your own
exactly.
better credit limits and credit cards, in
Exactly.
addition to getting the funding that you need. Am I hearing that
Yes.
correct?
Yes. Trade lines can
I didn't even think
really,
about that.
yeah, trade lines can really solve a number of issues. I mean, not only does it allow you to get business funding, and with the business funding, where you can then, shift balances that you have on personal cards over to your business cards. That in and of itself is going to
Right.
bring down your personal utilization. And when
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
personal utilization drops down, now your personal side is really good, to
Man,
be able to do things. It's a lot of things that you can do when it comes to trade lines,
that is awesome.
but just having a plan, having a strategy. And that's why
Yeah.
working with people like yourself or myself that's in this space can kind of help you maneuver along and really set yourself up well as your family.
That is so powerful. I think knowing this kind of stuff in this business, man, that could be such a game changer because you're not like, and I try to I try to hammer this home as much as possible that you're not a business loan broker, so to speak. You're a consultant. You're helping them get what they need in their business.
Right.
Yes, we're starting with funding, but if you can explain this to them, right, and help them get not just the credit boost so they get the funding, but also you're showing them how they can get their own primary account, stop using their own personal credit limit and stuff like that. Man, they're gonna worship the ground you walk on. Like they're gonna want to do business with you for a long time after that, because you're helping them with all these different things that have been in their blind spot. Like a lot of people don't know how this stuff works.
Right.
So if you're the person that fixes that, it solidifies too. Like if you sell the trade line, you help them with all the stuff. Who do you think they're going to go to for their funding once they're able to get it? It's 100% going to be you. And that's why I was saying earlier, guys, that this is such a phenomenal way to help you close more loans, not just from the aspect of like boosting their credit so they're qualified, but getting people to actually want to do business with you, because you're not trying to shove funding down their throat. You're actually trying to help them get to where they need to be in order to get that funding. Any remarks on that, Will?
Yeah, you're absolutely on point. When you think about it, and you know this, Matt, as entrepreneurs, we are problem solvers. We're problem solvers. So I know we can wear different titles, hats, loan broker, or, credit repair specialist, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, we're called to solve problems. So when you can solve a client's problem, because I understand, just like many of you that's in the loan broker space, we all see the same challenges. The number one hurdle as to why your client couldn't get through the funding door is because of credit. And a lot of times it's not so much as they have bad credit or, collections or things like that. It's just that, hey, their utilizations are high, trying to keep the business going. And so Tradelines is a really good way to be another problem solver. So like you said, absolutely, when you solve that, who are they going to go for funding? They're going to go directly to you.
100%. The more problems you can solve and the bigger problems you can solve, the more money you're going to make, period. And I should have mentioned this at the beginning. I apologize, guys, but there's going to be an opportunity for you guys to partner up with Will inside of EliteBroker. We're going to cover that shortly. I just want to get some really good training on how trade lines work, how you guys can sell them, etc. So make sure you stick to the end. And you're going to have an opportunity to actually partner up with Will's company and sell their trade lines. All right, add that additional revenue stream. So I had a question come up here really quick, Will. Told that trade lines that are AUs can only help with the average age of credit history, correct or false?
False. And the reason it's false is because, again, yes, it can help with average age, but we have also seen it to where it also brings down the overall credit utilization on a client's profile. And again, my own personal story, I've used it. So yeah, that's false. It's not that it can only help with age. It can also help with that overall credit utilization.
Nice. Cool. I want to get into some other details here. What is the typical cost for a trade line? I know it varies depending on the age, but give an example of like a 1 year, a 3 year, and a 5 year. What is the typical cost that a client's going to pay for that?
Yeah, so the two things that you have to factor in when you're looking at cost on trade lines is obviously age and obviously the credit limit. Okay, so age being the most important, that's very important. So if you have, let's say, a 1 year age on a credit line, and I'm going to use 10,000. Let's say it's a $10,000. You're probably looking at $200, maybe $300, if that, on that trade line. Now let's take that same trade line, 10,000. But it has a 10-year history. Obviously, that's going to be a lot more. So you're probably looking at between $500, maybe $600, $700 for that, roughly. So those are just some ballpark ranges. But again, that age is very, very important. And so this is where, again, knowing how to read your client's credit profile and what does this client need? Does this client need age, or do they need to have, a good amount of credit limit in order to bring down that utilization? So you have to know that.
That's really good. Yes, you write that down. Age or limit, which one do they need? Right? Because not all trade lines are good for all clients, right? So knowing that is really important. Exactly. That seems to me, that seems kind of like really cheap, like for what the client is getting, because, if you need a $50,000 loan, would you pay $500? That's like, it's 1% of what you need.
Right.
I'm just running the numbers through my head, because when they get the funding, that covers the cost of the trade line anyways, plus it's a
Exactly.
tax write-off, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it seems to me like, and that's the next thing I want to get into is your sales process, and
Mhm.
maybe do like maybe you can walk us through an example deal that you've done recently or whatnot. But it doesn't seem to me like it's a really difficult thing to sell, but obviously there's a process to everything.
Right.
So what are some of the, I don't know, maybe the common objections that you get from business owners? Just maybe just walk us through your sales process and what that's like.
Okay. Our sales process is really simple, and we like to keep things simple. Once we have a consultation, and a lot of times clients come to us because of funding. That's the purpose why they come. Okay. And so once we evaluate or look at their credit report and we find out, now a lot of people already know, hey, my credit cards are really high. They already know it. Okay. They'll tell you, and they'll tell you, I probably can't get funding. My credit utilization right now is really high. And so it's like, okay, hey, well, let us take a look at it and let's see, what we can work with. And so when we look at the credit reports, we recently had a client that needed to add about 28,000 to their credit profile because of where their utilization was. So what we try to do is we try to get them in that 30 percentile, because banks are fine if you have an overall utilization of about 30%, 30, 35. We found that to still be fine. Okay.
Okay.
But when you're climbing into that 40, 50, that's a red flag. I mean, it really is. So what our process is we evaluate the credit report. We look at what is the overall limits they have, credit limits. What are the balances? That's where you get. So let's use an example. They have $100,000 total credit limit. And let's say their balances overall is 60,000. 100,000, 60,000, that's a 60% utilization. So in a scenario like that, we know that we need to get 30%. We need to come down 30%, because that 30% will bring us into the 30 percentile. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So in that scenario, we need to add about 30,000 in trade lines, roughly. And then what we do is we simply send back an email to the client and we give them those numbers. Okay. Because during the consultation, we tell them, hey, where you really want to be and what banks will fund. So we tell them, if you're in the 30%, 30, 35%, you're fine. And so once we evaluate the credit report and we see, okay, hey, they're at 60% in that scenario I just used. Okay, we then send them the spreadsheet showing them what trade lines are available. So they're going to see what financial institution is from, what the credit limit is, what the utilization is, the date that it reports, and how long it stays on the credit report is active. That's what they're going to see. Gotcha. So then from there, they'll just simply email us back and say, okay, I want this, this, and this. And, sometimes they can cover the amount they need in one trade line. Sometimes it may require two trade lines. But again, we always tell them, based on what your budget is.
So real quick on that, I want to share my screen. I'm going to pull up. So this is available inside of EliteBroker now, guys. If you sign up to be a partner with Will's company here, you can sell these trade lines. And I was just going through this really quick, and this is up to date. Like this is the one that you sent me earlier, right?
Yes, correct. Yep.
Okay. And I was looking at this, like this one right here in that scenario. This one would be like a perfect fit for that example. The 28,000 limit. It's 6 years old, right? And you're looking at $670. That'd be the client price. So obviously, the broker might sell it for $750, $800, or something like that, right?
Right.
But this would be a perfect example of like that client would need one trade line in this particular case, right? The 28,000, 6 years, like that would help them a lot.
Yeah.
Correct.
That would help them tremendously. Yeah. And like I said, again, it's just knowing what amount does your client need. Do they need amount? Do they need a amount, or do they need age? So you have to know that. And from there, then you have the spreadsheet and you're able to send that to them. And, now you probably want to, and some of you may want to discuss it over the phone, because, if you're going to add your fee onto it, then you just want to make sure that that's covered. But again, when people understand that trade lines can be a really good boost, to get you where you're trying to go. And like you said earlier, Matt, when you look at the investment on what the trade line may cost versus what you're going to be getting,
right,
it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
I imagine you will explain that to them too, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
it's pretty obvious, it's pretty obvious, but I think explaining that would be, really powerful for helping to close that sale.
Yeah, it'll kind of bring the light on, because sometimes, and I understand it, we hear a cost and in our mind, it's like, oh man, okay, do I have that? But then when you let them know, hey, if you invest 600, and I asked the question, let me ask you a question. If you were to invest 600 and I told you would get back 40 or 50,000, would you do it? It doesn't take 2 seconds for a person to say, absolutely. Okay, well, great. This is what you're doing.
Right. The funding is paying for all of this.
Exactly.
And in the long run, it's going to be really good for your credit as well, because you're adding additional primary accounts and all that other stuff we talked about earlier. So that's awesome, man. I wanted to talk a little bit about like actually closing it. So because that's what I'm setting up in EliteBroker as well. I'm going to have training in the members area, guys. It's going to be under lenders and loan products. And I'm going to have a separate section specifically for trade lines where I show you how to send the invoice inside of EliteBroker, how to send client information back over to back to Will directly. So we're gonna have a form and everything. Actually, let me just walk you guys through that part really quick, just to show you where it's at. So when you're logged into EliteBroker, on the left-hand side here, there's 2 new tabs. These are the trade lines. This is updated in real time. So whenever Will and his team update these trade lines, it is in real time. It gets updated directly inside of EliteBroker, so you can see all of the trade lines that are available to be sold right now. And once you sell it, there's another tab where you can actually, once the client has paid, which again, I'm going to have training on how to send the invoice. It's really easy. Once they pay, you can just fill out this form really quick and it sends it directly to Will's team. They'll invoice you. So basically, this is kind of like a wholesale opportunity. You're wholesaling trade lines, basically, where you sell it for a little bit more. Will's team charges you guys, and you keep the spread. That's basically what you're going to be doing here. But what I was going to ask you, Will, is do you find that I guess a lot of it would have to do with the conversation initially in selling it, but is it good to stay on the phone with people when you send the invoice and help them pick the trade line and like make recommendations? Or do you find it better to just send them the URL to the spreadsheet and then send them the invoice? What do you find works best?
I think a lot of that has to do with the rapport that you build with the client. Because, there are some clients you can kind of tell when you get off the phone, they're probably not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Right. Just be honest. And then there are some clients that you kind of have that rapport to where I'm serious. Yeah. Send it over to me. I'll get it back to you. And so we've actually done both, but I think it really boils down to the rapport that you build with the client. And so, yes, that's going to be the conversation that you're having with them. So I don't know if I can say one is better than the other. We've just done both, but I really think that it boils down to the rapport that you have with the client.
Sure. I'd have to agree with that. The type of conversation that you have, again, being that consultant, the expert, the more confident you are with what you're talking about, and not being too salesy, not trying to shove this down the throat. You're just the consultant. You're the funding doctor, right? And this is something that is going to help you. This is a prescription that's going to help you get to where you need to be to get the funding. All right. So if you have a really good conversation, I do this in my business all the time where I'll have conversations with people. Yeah, I'll send you a link. Some people do it, some people don't, but I do notice a difference in the types of conversations I have, whether or not they move forward. So I think that is really important. So let's see. Before we get into how EliteBrokers can join or start selling your trade lines and partner up with you, is there anything else that we missed about trade lines that you want to cover? It seems pretty basic to me, nothing too nothing too complicated, but is there anything else you want to cover specifically about trade lines before we get into EliteBrokers joining?
I really think that we covered the gist of it, Matt. And I think that when people understand that it's simple, the main thing is letting people understand that you're not getting a physical card. Okay.
Right.
You're not getting a physical card, but also letting them know you don't need a physical card for what we're going after here. You need the history of the card. Okay. That's very important. And again, that has to do with, your conversation, the rapport that you build with them, and coming across as someone that really is trying to help them. And like you said, Matt, not being salesy, not being pushy, and you have to also understand you're not the first person that these clients have tried to get funding from. So some of the things that you're going to tell them, they've already heard it. So you're basically going to be confirming it, which is going to more stamp into their head, hey, yeah, I need to get this done because somebody else told me this and I didn't move forward and I thought I can come to you and get it done. And now you're telling me the same thing. So again, just be honest, just be straightforward with the person. And I got a young lady I'm working with right now. She needs to get almost 55,000 in trade lines because her utilization is 90%. Woo. Yeah. 90%.
That's right.
And so you have to be, you have to have the care to be able to be honest with people. And she's the one that got herself in it. So hey, you came for funding for us, and I'm going to show you what you need to do in order to get that funding. But yeah, she needs about 55,000 in trade lines.
Yeah, you're just stating the facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just stating the facts. Like, hey, this is the situation. You don't judge them for it, and you don't say, oh, this is your fault, or whatever. Like, hey, this is just the situation. It is what it is. We can fix it. There is a solution. Here's what it looks like. Are you willing to pay the cost for it? How bad do you need that funding for your business? Are you willing to pay $1,000 to get 50,000?
Right.
Seems like we were talking about earlier, kind of like a no-brainer. So, all right, cool. So I want to walk through the process of how you guys can start selling these trade lines. And, it's so much better in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, Will, but this seems like a much better way of selling trade lines versus trying to build your own stack of trade lines, kind of like a lender network. Instead of building a lender network from scratch, which maybe you make more commissions or make more money in the end, but the time that you save is what I'm focused on with this. So because you guys already have a ton of trade lines that people can sell, like you guys can literally start selling these today if you want it. I'm going to have the training on the invoice right after this call, but you guys can start doing this immediately. And so I want to walk through how you guys can get started here. So it's actually really easy. I've got the automation set up already. Let me go back to my screen. If you guys go into the training members area, so go into EliteBroker University under the lenders and loan products category, you'll now see trade lines available. And if you click this, I'm going to put the replay of this training in this category, this lesson right here. But there's a form that you fill out, and this goes directly to Will's team. And then, Will, what do you guys do from there? Do you send an email? Do you do an onboarding call? What do you do from there?
No, we'll just send an email to the broker. And so the other thing with that is we want to communicate with the broker because these are your clients. And so the more your client hears your voice, the more that you're the answer to your client. It's kind of like a one-stop stop. Okay. So we really want you to be the one to stay in communication with your client. We'll communicate with you. Okay.
Right.
And if you guys have any questions, then hey, just shoot us a question, shoot us an email. You guys, I'll even give you guys my phone number, but we want you to be the one to be to communicate with your client. So you could be their trusted advisor and you're the one that they go to. We don't want them to come to us. Okay.
Right.
So we want that communication to stay with you guys, between you and
them. So what happens after they sell the client? You invoice the broker, they pay that, they keep the spread, they submit the trade line form to send the client information to you. What communication do you have? What does the communication look like after that? You're updating the broker, you're communicating with the client. How does that work?
Yeah, so the communication after that is once they've been added to the trade line, we'll send you guys an email showing that they've been added, okay? And you'll know what trade line that they chose, and therefore you'll see what trade line date, reporting date. So one of the things that we do is we put it in our calendar just as a reminder to just text the client to, hey, remember, check your credit reports around this date. Like I text the client this morning, he has a trade line that should have reported yesterday. So I normally say a day or two after, again, because sometimes the credit reporting agencies may not update it exactly on that date, the credit report, but it should be around that date. So, again, this is building that trust with your clients, staying in communication with them. So that's what we'll do. So after the trade line has been purchased, you guys have sent us the information for the client. We're going to add the client to the trade line, and then we'll send you an email. Normally, we'll sometimes send a snapshot. It's different with each of the financial institutions, but some of them, they'll show, okay, this client has been added, and they'll show the name, and we'll send that to you, and you can communicate that with your client.
That's really it, right? Because once they're added, there's really no maintenance at that point. There's no updates, or like if you guys want to get on the phone with your client, a couple of weeks after to see where you're at, or like every month, see where it's at, to see when it's actually taken effect. That would be really the main type of communication that takes place at that point is you as the broker are now continuing to communicate with this client to see when that takes effect. All right, their credit's boosted, we're good, your utilization is down. Now let's go ahead and submit the application, right? That's really what that process would look like at that point. You guys are really not involved in anything afterwards.
No, we're not. Yeah. So then once the transaction has been completed, then it's just a matter of waiting for that reporting date. That's it.
Right.
Yeah, you're just waiting for the reporting date. And so once it's been verified that it's now showing on their credit report, then that's when you should see the effect of it. Credit scores, things of that nature. At that point, now it's time to go for funding.
Right. Right. And the reporting date is on the spreadsheet for each trade line, right?
Exactly. It's on the
so what do I tell you guys on the onboarding call? The two most important features inside of EliteBroker, in my opinion, notes and tasks. So when you see that reporting, when you sell that trade line, you see the reporting date, you need to have a follow-up task for that date, or maybe even before, like, hey, this is about to hit tomorrow. So contact the prospect. Let's double check it. Okay, let's put in the application for funding. Just do it immediately. Will, am I on the right track there?
Man, you're spot on it. That's what we do, and again, the more you can stay in communication, because remember, you may purchase a trade line, let's say today, and it may be the 28th that it reports. So that's like a few weeks. So, the client hasn't heard from you. Let's just say they've just spent $600. Okay. Right. They want to know something. So, just staying in touch with them, letting them know that, hey, everything is good. And like you said, Matt, maybe a day or so before the reporting date, just texting them, say, hey, just a little reminder, the trade line should be hitting, in the next couple of days or so. So check your reports. Right. That's all clients love that.
Yeah. And even booking an appointment for the reporting date, like being right, like, hey, this is when this trade line reports. That should be when it makes the impact that we're looking for on your credit report. Let's go ahead and get an appointment on the calendar. I'll call you on that date. We'll double check your credit report and put in the application.
There you go. There you go. Right. And let me also mention this too, Matt. That is also important. On the spreadsheet where it has the reporting date, one of the things that we require, this is a strong requirement, I'm going to explain why, is whatever the reporting date says, you must make sure that the sales transaction is complete, paid for, at least 5 days before that reporting date. And the reason why is because it just gives us time, guys, if there are any hiccups, or if we were off a digit on the social, something like that, it gives us time to make sure that we get it in still in time that it can hit. Okay. Right. But to try to do it the day before, you just can run into too many issues. Okay. Right. So we can ask, if you look at the spreadsheet, you see the reporting date is on the 9th, then that the very latest your payment should be completed by the 4th. That's 5 days before the 9th. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. I think that comes down to managing expectations as well. Don't promise something like at the last minute, like, we're going to be able to report it's going to report in a couple of days. Don't do that. Say there's a possibility that it could report in a couple of days, but sometimes these things take a few days. We may have to wait till next month's reporting date.
Right.
And it's still fine. It is what it is. There's not much you can do about that, but just manage those expectations. We had another Question: if these trade lines report as an authorized user, won't some banks see through that? Based on the FICO model they use?
No, sir. Again, I'll speak from my own personal experience, and I'll speak from the experience of clients. I had a client. I'm glad someone asked that question. I had a client that came over to us. They had really good credit scores. I mean, like 813. I think his highest was probably 820. So he had pretty good credit scores. The challenge was his highest credit card on his personal side was about $2,000. So if you guys know anything about business funding, typically when you go to get business funding, they're going to give you about 3 to 5 times on the business funding side of what your personal credit highest limit is. Okay.
Right.
So this particular client needed about 40,000. And so one of the things I write, and this is a case where this guy had good age. It was just his utilization, the credit limits were low.
Right. The limit.
Yeah. So we added, I think about 22,000. Okay. And so when we added the 22,000, I sent it over to a lender. So let me start with this first, Matt. So we first sent his credit report over to a lender. They came back with a funding projection of about 15,000. The client said, okay, that's a little bit low because she was looking to move into an office and she was looking to hire one staff person. So she said 15,000 was a little low. So then I said, okay, here's why that projection came back low. And it was because of his credit card on his personal side was only about $2,000. Okay. And so when we added the trade line, about a week after that trade line hit the credit reports, I sent that credit report over to another lender. They came back with a funding projection of 40 to 60,000. See the difference? And the client wound up getting 75,500.
Wow, that's nuts, man.
Yep. So
that's crazy.
I can give you story after story.
Awesome payday,
yeah.
You sold the trade line and you make commission on a $75,000 deal.
Yep.
Woo. You know,
she would have gotten 100,000, but she declined the American Express card. So
yeah,
she would have got no problem.
You can only get so much from them, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. That's just that's how this business is done, in my opinion. Like, there's so many people that you know they when their clients get declined, or it only, you know, they want 50,000, but they only come back at 10 or 15. You know, they're done with it at that point. But like, if you know just a couple of basic things like this, you can make more money on the trade line and get more funding for your clients. You get more deals in general. Like, why not take the time to, you know, take a couple of days? Because it doesn't sound like, I mean, this training alone, you guys are probably already kind of trade line experts, right? It's not too complicated. Like, I think we love overcomplicating stuff. But, you know, a couple of basic things like this, you know, you got someone that needs funding, their credit isn't where it needs to be. It could be in the next couple of weeks, and they get funding for $75,000, $50,000. We just added our own lender network to this. They come back in 24 to 48 hours with 3 to 5 offers, guys. So if you boost the credit, you sell the trade line, boost the credit, submit it inside of EliteBroker, you get an offer in 24 to 48 hours. I mean, come on. What else do we need here? I don't know. I don't know what else we need, guys. Yeah. So, man, that's just awesome stuff. So I really appreciate your time, Will. We'll go ahead and start to wrap up. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and drop them down in the comments. We'll get a few final words from Will here, but I think this has just been awesome, man. So I really appreciate it. Is there anything else that you wanna add to this?
No, really, Matt, man, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate all that you do. And, you know, you and I, we jump on calls sometimes. You help me with, you know, the Facebook, that stuff. You're just, man, I just got to tip my hat, you know, and I'm kind of like a kid when I talk about this, because you have no idea how long we have been waiting. We had another funnel that very similar. It was a white label of Go High Level. And we got several people, man, that we paid to try to build out what you have. And we never got it. So when I ran into this EliteBroker, I told my wife, I'm like, this dude got exactly what we've been looking for. So, man, I'm grateful, man. I appreciate you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Sure.
You know, man, we have so many people, guys, that we can help, you know, and sometimes it's just understanding where they're at. Like I said, it's not always that they have collection accounts or public record. Sometimes it's just high utilization. I've run into that probably more than anything. It's high utilization. So you got to be an answer to that person's problem. And I just have seen from my own personal experience, as well as with clients, trade lines, when you know how to actually get them correctly on there and the right ones, man, it's been a great answer to a lot of people. Great answer.
Yeah. So I think that's something that is often overlooked and maybe forgotten sometimes in this business. You know, so focused on making money and, you know, getting commissions and stuff like that, you forget the impact that this can really have on somebody's business. You know, when you helped that lady or that person get, you know, the money for their new office to hire staff, that probably took her business to the next level. You know, that's the kind of stuff that can really move the needle for people, man. So, you know, don't underestimate the impact that you guys have on people's lives as loan brokers. Like you do this stuff right, you can make a huge impact in people's lives. So yeah, just a good reminder. So anyways, Will, absolute pleasure to speak with you, man. I really appreciate this. You dropped some really good stuff here. I really hope that you guys take this information and apply it. You've got all the tools that you need inside of EliteBroker. So now, you know, you got the marketing end, you got trade lines that you can sell through Will's company here. You know, let's make this stuff happen. You know, information is useless without action. So I want you guys to take action on this. Get this into your business as soon as possible. All right. So get signed up with Will. You know, be in touch with him. You got any questions? You know, let us know in the comments and in the group and stuff like that. And yeah, looking forward to see where this goes. So, Will, appreciate your time, brother. And we'll talk again soon. All right.
All right, man. Be well.
All right, guys. Take care.
All right.